All right, welcome back to the Fuse Show, everybody. My name is Bud. I am an account executive here at xfusion.io and co-host of the Fuse Show. I am excited to be joined today by my guest, Hemanth Puttaswamy. Hemanth is the CEO and co-founder of Malbek. His vision is to redefine the quote-to-cash solution aimed at the age of AI. Hemanth is a hands-on leader passionate about building a great team with a great culture that zealously works to make every customer successful. He is responsible for overall corporate strategy and product vision with a keen eye towards building the best man-to-machine solution interface that will delight every user. That's a handful. Sorry about that. Stumbled over myself a little bit. Hemanth, it's great to have you on the show, my friend.
Thanks, Christy. Absolutely. Happy to be here, Bud. It's great to be here.
Nice. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. Straight away. We both have kind of a little bit of a time constraint today, so we'll get right into it. Malbek is a CLM, a contract lifecycle management company, but it's kind of more than that. So go ahead and tell us, in your own words, what Malbek is, and then we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper.
Sure. So at Malbek, what we do is we help customers, the businesses, from very small to extremely large, the Fortune 100 customers, manage their contracts, like sales team requesting contracts, and and finance team managing the obligation. Not just that, even the procurement, the HR, every part of the organization is involved on our platform. So anything and everything, whether it's selling or buying, any relationships that you're building, everything requires contract. And it's on our platform that they will be able to do that very optimally in the shortest possible time with a win-win negotiation.
Nice. All right, so what was kind of the catalyst for you to start Malbek? What was the genesis of it? Was there something that happened in one of your older companies that made you want to start this, or what kind of made you want to begin this thing?
When I was working as an executive in the previous company, in a public company, very interesting thing happened. There was an audit, financial audit, that resulted in company had to restate 10 years of financials. And everything boiled down to contract. Everything boiled down to it. And then we noticed about 2,600 plus customers, every customer's contract was non-standard. Every customer contracts, the obligations that was committed was non-standard. There was no clear way of recognizing the revenue in a consistent pattern. So the finance problem boiled down to the core of it, which was contract. So the contracts are not standardized, if the contracts are not managed right, then it can be a major problem. So that company, which was public, had to go private and restate all their financials for 10 years with about $20 million expense for the company. So that was the beginning of, that started me thinking, contracts is so important for the company. If you don't manage it right, it can help you with the top line as well as the bottom line. So one thing that can help on both sides of the finance, it will help accelerate the revenue and also to reduce the revenue. So that was a perfect thing for me to go after.
How long did it take you to go through all those contracts for that audit? Like, that had to have taken a long time.
That took probably in the range of 1 year, and about 12.5, 15,000 contracts. It was crazy time.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
So you're doing that. You say, man, there's got to be a better way to do to automate all this.
That's right.
And you kind of have a background in AI and NLP. So is that kind of what got you started in thinking that you can just do this whole contract thing better? Was I can add AI, NLP to what's going on here, and we can cut this time down.
Yeah. Believe it or not, in this space, in the contract lifecycle management, when I started, 50 or 60% of the implementations failed. 50 to 60% of the implementations. It's pretty complex. It touches on so many different departments. There are so many complex rules. So the first part was the configurability for the implementation was very difficult in this industry. And the second part was the AI was not even thought about. It was not even talked about in this particular area. And those two were the perfect combination. So build a solution at the same time, bring in the natural language processing with the AI and the big data to marry these two concepts together to provide a very easy to use and outcome based solution that will revolutionize the industry. And that's exactly what we did.
So I think most of us are very familiar with AI at this point. Natural language processing is maybe not quite as familiar with a lot of people. I know I'm not quite as familiar with that. So go ahead and explain that to me, if nobody else, and explain how you kind of bring that around and into your contracts and just how you bring that into the entire solution.
Sure. So natural language processing is it's an area of AI where the machines will try to comprehend the language, right? The language like English. Most of the contracts that we do is in English. So to be able to read the contracts, which is written in English, and the machines will try to make sense of it, looking for the pattern. So that at the highest level, and then there is, Alexa kind of technology where you will be able to have a conversation with the machine, where you can ask question and then it will respond. And natural language processing is an area where it's continuously evolving, and there is so much of research that's being done. And contracts are a special beast. The lawyers, the legal team, sometimes can run the other side of the, normal humans, like when I say normal, non-lawyers, it will be difficult for them to understand. That's how complex it can get. Double negative language, right? It cannot be in this circumstances. If it is the other circumstance, then it works this way. So it's a lot of language processing that has to happen. And the AI is the NLP is a perfect area for this, where, we can recognize the patterns from different lawyers, right? Thousands of lawyers, and then try to come up with the patterns. So make it easy for the business users to comprehend what's there in the contract. If you have 500 contracts, that's fine. If you have 50,000 contracts, 500,000 contracts, then go make sense of it in the large scale and try to make sure that your company is not exposed to unnecessary risk and your company is able to run the business. Whatever happened with that previous company that I was talking about does not happen with others. So that's what this is all about.
Nice. So I can also see, you said that it's constantly learning. It's constantly looking at your contracts, constantly learning. So I can also see a scenario where the more contracts you make,
yes,
the more contracts that it's reading, and it's learning
yes,
kind of what you're putting into your contracts. So I'm guessing that the less and less you have to actually type your contracts up, like the more that it's learning what your contracts look like, and it can kind of make your contracts easier to put out. I guess is probably what I'm trying to say there. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. The more contracts that you can do, the more the machine learns, the faster the machine learns. And the faster the machine learns, the better ROI that you have, right? And, like we are, like our vision is on every side of the equation. Contract life cycle management, right? Life cycle part of it is so important, where you start from drafting the best contract so that it can get negotiated the faster, signed faster. And then while negotiating, how do you reduce the number of round trips between the lawyers, right? To signature and then obligation tracking, and then making sure that every contract going forward will follow some standard process and make sure it does not do the mistakes that was done historically, all those things. So yeah, the more the machine learns, the better it gets and better the life cycle gets, which is what the enterprises would love taking advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so there's different CLMs out there. There's some CLMs that are good with small contracts. There's some CLMs that are good with enterprise size contracts. You cover both just as well, right? But you can also, from what I can gather, grow with a company. Like if they start out small, you can start with them and also grow with them as they grow. Like, what makes you a better choice in CLM? What makes you able to do that where other CLM companies are just kind of stuck with what they do? How are you able to do that?
Sure. So the legal tech in general, but it's very wide, right? Some solutions are focused on just extracting key terms, key clauses, and providing insights, which is contract analytics. And there are some solutions which is focused on just obligation tracking. Some solutions which are just focused on the CLM, drafting of the contract. Some on the negotiation. We are a platform that does end to end. And as you said, from very lower end of the market with 5 users all the way to 500,000 users, right? So that spectrum. That's where the challenge comes. How do you make sure it's so easy for the customers with 5 users to all the way to the 500 users? Adoption in the enterprise is not easy, right? So that's one of the things that we differentiate, where the usability, the user experience, the configurability part of it with self-service is easy because we cover the whole spectrum. With that comes the other challenge, which is for the large enterprise, very complex rules are required. So there's a customer who has deployed one, what we call it as template, into 250 countries, right? Based on different countries, there are different provisions that you want to be able to, assemble in real time. So that causes, that's a different kind of challenge where you have this large enterprise rules requirement. Now, with this spectrum, as I said, like lifecycle AI is very important, right? You're not just doing it for the drafting, you're not just doing it for the negotiation, not for the signature, not just for the obligation, but you have to do every point where there is AI in every part, and customers need not even have to know that they're going through, there's AI, because it has to be that transparent and just make it easy for them. Make it 3 times faster, 4 times faster, the activities that they do every day, right? So the productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, those are some of the things that we focus on and differentiate that way.
So say, well, I was going to ask you a question, but I think you already kind of answered that. So kind of coming out of what you do
Yeah.
and what Malbec is, I kind of want to get into kind of how you're structured and and just the company as a whole, right? You are big on culture.
Yes.
You have kind of grown your team, from what I can tell, kind of around culture and how you treat your people.
Yeah.
So, um, tell me about how your culture has changed over the last couple years, and how you grow with your people, and what you've done to create your culture, number one, and keep your culture, number two, as you grow.
Yeah, that's a great question and a challenge for every CEO, particularly the
Right.
startup CEO. Right? Culture is so important for me, but that's one of the major reasons why I started Malbek. Apart from solving a specific need, I wanted to start a company where every employee feels that they belong to this company, where they feel that every day they start and when they end the day, it's like, yes, I have done something different, something, like I have fulfilled, like it's a fulfilling experience. If you don't have that, then you don't have a good company, right? People work for money for sure, but money is not the only factor. That fulfillment, the belongingness, and having their ideas heard are some of the very important things, right? Like it's an evolution for me as well, right? I was not a great listener when I started, right? Uh, it's something that empathy, like empathy is one thing that I learned over the time in my career, and I preach and practice and make sure every one of our co-founders, every one of the executives, every one of the leaders do that. Every idea is welcome, right? And I, for example, go help team, not just in the product area, not just in the sales area, in the support. Like sometimes there can be a set of tickets where there are, like it can be difficult at times, right? When we have implemented a lot of customers and they went live and then they're looking for help. So I set an example first to show that we support each other for this common mission, right? That's one. And two, every employee that we hire, uh, I interview every employee that we hire. That's very important. I personally see whether it's a good cultural fit and have honest conversation with the prospective employee on how we do things and why we do things in specific ways. So that's the second one, and the third one is after the person is onboarded, like after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, do they feel the same way? I personally try to directly meet with as many employees as possible, chat with them for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? Even though it can be crazy days, it can be busy days, but I make an attempt. And so with that, I set an example for every leader in the company to do that. And every employee should be able to speak up. And I encourage people to say, I'm wrong, because they have learned a lot of things from employees. So those are some very basic principles with which we work. And it's genuine. It's not like just for the lip service, right? I show it with example. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. So, uh, just out of curiosity now, how many employees do you have right now?
So we are in the range of 54 or 55. Like it's increasing
Yeah,
about that.
and that's not a small undertaking to keep up with that, and how long they've been on, and then try and have a conversation with them, at the 6 month or 1 year or 2 year mark. Like that's a big deal, and that's something that they see. The owners here at Xfusion have done something very similar. Like we're coming up on the 60 employee mark, and they just put out um, uh, I guess their vision and mission statement, and they just started a AMA and Ask Me Anything, thing on Slack, and they have an open door policy, but they started when we were very small, having one-on-ones with everybody, and now our leaders and mid-level leaders have learned how to do that from them, and they do that with all the people that are underneath, and it's just kind of a cascading effect how that happens. The conversations that Jim and David had with them, they are now having with the people underneath them, that they learned how to do from the owners, right? And it's very powerful when you can learn that from the people at the top. So, man, I commend you. That's not a small undertaking to do. And as you grow, it's just going to get harder and harder. So how do you plan on keeping that up? Like that's going to be more and more difficult as you get to 100 or 200 or 300 employees, if it gets that big.
Absolutely. So, like you said, the next level leaders and the leaders, third level, second level, third level leaders, every leader in the company, will follow the examples that you have set, right? And if you are able to do that, culture is an infectious thing in a positive way, right? And if you're able to imbibe that with every one of the employees, my belief, even at 300, 400, you will be able to continue the same journey. And that's an ongoing effort. Absolutely, you need to listen, you need to learn, and then react as we go through it.
Yeah. So like I was looking on your about page on your internet page, and just it's little things, right? So on your about page, you have pictures of all your people, or some of your leadership people, and as you scroll over the pictures, there's a little cartoon of them, and I'm guessing it's a cartoon of them and what their favorite thing to do is, like skiing or their dog or knitting or something like that. It's kind of a little cartoon bobblehead of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, because you had to have a conversation with them to figure out what is your favorite thing. Is it skiing? Is it your dog? Is it your kids? Because one guy's feeding his child in a high chair and giving another one pizza. Like I'm like, it's brilliant, and that into culture. So I don't know, man. Little things like that just put you over the top, and it's things like that are great. So I noticed it, and I bet other people do too. And if I can notice it from the outside, you've got to be able to notice it from the inside. And I'm like, contracts are boring. Like, contracts I think are boring. But your people don't seem to be bored. And the little video they put out, they seem to be very happy. And I'm like, if you can make contracts not boring, good on you, man. That's great. But you have the do say attitude. We say what we do what we say. And that's great. And that starts with you and your co-founders, and it's definitely bleeding down to your people. So awesome.
Yeah, I give the credit to marketing team as well. We have amazing head of marketing who work with us on a daily basis. And every one of the execs, every one of the people in the company care about every one of the employees, right? As you said, we want to know what they love to do, during as part of the hobby. Music is very integral part of the company, right? we play music in the all hands. So we find ways to make sure that it is interesting and fulfilling for every employee.
Yeah. Um, sometimes I ask a founder, how did you go about building your company? But you kind of already answered that, as in you try and interview each person that comes on.
Yeah.
But in one of your little videos, you said that fate brought you and your co-founder together. Like, how did
Yeah.
that happen? How did you guys come together to kind of start building this thing?
Sure. Of the three co-founders, Madhu, who is our CTO and co-founder, Madhu and I go way back to engineering college. We did engineering together. So I know Madhu quite well from those days. And then Matt, I met him in the previous company, which was, like revenue management company. And while doing that, and I found Matt to be one of the best product managers who knows the contract lifecycle management industry really well. So it was an easy decision for me to get Matt, Madhu, and myself together. Uh, and also like Madhu and myself, when we came to US, we worked in different companies, and again we got back together. So it was an amazing journey.
Um, when you guys came to are you all from India? You're from India. Are you all from India?
All three co-founders are from India.
Nice.
We
So,
live, yeah, but that's
sorry. So, what brought you all from India over to the States?
no, definitely like opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And able to do what we wanted to do. I mean, we did our undergrad in engineering, all three of us, right? And came here to do masters in business. And with that, like fell in love with the country, fell in love with the opportunity, and the people are so welcoming. And learning from, like, for engineers, if you don't learn, then you die. So we I mean, all three of us are very curious, love learning from people, right? The perspectives that we are able to get, that's what makes this country beautiful.
That's nice to hear, because a lot of times when you hear news from overseas, it's just bad news about the U.S. and people from the U.S. But I agree with you. I think there's very welcoming people all over this country. Even in the political climate we have, and how disenfranchised we are from left to right, I still think that there's a lot of very welcoming people. And all you really have to do is just talk to people, and you can find it. Like, you can find people that are just very nice, even if you don't agree with them. So no, that's great. I'm glad that you found that here, and welcome. Like, it's awesome, and thank you for building a company that's number one, doing well, and number two, employing people, and welcome to the American dream. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what is, number one, kind of your biggest pain point in your company right now? And number two, kind of what is the pain point that you see in your industry going forward?
Sure. On the first one, every pain point is a challenge. It is an opportunity, right? I, like, for sure, every company is facing this, which is able to hire fast enough, right? You need people, you need good talent, and you want to be able to hire yesterday. So hiring is definitely a challenge, right? And of course, we reinvent ourselves to do more with technology, but of course, you need more people, right? So that's the first challenge, which is, again, with that comes, okay, how do we take care of the existing people? And sometimes, how do we make sure that we can optimize the technology to do a little more? Because it is the necessity, right? That is one side of it. And on the industry challenge as a whole is, like the contract lifecycle management. There's so much of, even though it's a very well-known space, there is a lot of confusion on who can do what. Everyone will be called contract lifecycle management, but in reality, there are a handful of companies with the capability of doing end-to-end all the platform, right? The whole platform. So I believe 2022 and 2023 will be a defining year for our industry, where there will be a set of players who will succeed and set of players who may not succeed.
Which is the way it should be, right? I mean, it's business, and some should rise, and some shouldn't. I mean, that's just kind of the way it's supposed to go. So, yeah. I want to be very mindful of our time, and make sure that I get you to your next appointment in plenty of time. So we'll kind of land this plane, but in order to do that, I want to ask you the same two questions that I ask everybody that's on this program when we do that. And that is, what advice would you give to founders or soon-to-be founders that are going to watch this program?
So the first one, if you're founding a company, like everyone says, the product market fit. Whatever product or service that you're providing, make sure it fills a need, right? It fills a need. And sometimes it can be deceptive. You will feel that you're filling a specific need, but validate that with 3, 4 early customers. Don't build it in vacuum. So that's the first advice that I would give. And the second one is know your core team. So you may feel that you're Superman or Superwoman. In reality, you have to have people who are like-minded or bring different perspective. They can disagree with you, but there has to be some alignment. You have that core set of people who have the same passion that you have, and build that core foundation before you can get to the next level. So those two things are extremely critical for the success. Of course, like raising fund, all those things are important. But if you do this right, that will happen automatically.
Yeah, very good. And then what is the best way for our viewers to get in touch with you if they so choose?
Sure. LinkedIn is one way, and our website, malbek.io, or LinkedIn on my profile. Absolutely would love to exchange any ideas, messages from fellow co-founders or anyone in the industry.
All right, very good. And if you are a company that deals with contracts, which is everybody,
yes,
you may want to give Malbek a call. They can help you out. So,
thank you so much.
Just saying.
That's fine.
All right. Hemanth, it was great to have you on the show, my friend. You have a really great rest of your day, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bud. I completely enjoyed it, and you have a great day as well.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Excellent.